Hello Earthlings, it's me, ImaginemonsterVi. Now, before we start the video, let me tell you something. I'm really grateful to have such amazing followers like you guys. Thank you all for supporting me, it really means a lot. If you like my content and want to see more stuff, you could also support me on Patreon or even buy me a coffee. If that doesn't work out for you, however, you can also follow my DeviantArt account, Instagram or Facebook page. That being said, I hope you'll enjoy the following video. Welcome to my Creepypasta Facts series. Here we're going to complain about how fangirls ruin the fandom. Nah, just kidding. We're going to bring out real facts about creepypasta and its characters as well. This is mainly to educate newcomers and fans that misunderstand the fanbase itself. Let's start with what creepypasta actually is. Now, we all know that the term comes from copy and paste or more copypasta, but I'm going to talk about what creepypasta really is. People believe that creepypasta really is more of a fandom for horror characters, most likely serial killers, with a backstory explaining what made the character drive into murder and so on. While in reality, creepypasta is a community with only one simple purpose. And that will mainly be to create and publish horrific stories, true or false, that will give the reader of the story a chill down their spine. I'm not saying now that you should stop making OCs completely and focus on stories only. What I really am saying is, if you do a creepypasta character, you should really first think about making a horror story and leave out the overused tragic past backstory completely. Of course you can add one, but keep in mind that creepypasta is about bringing fear to the reader and not trying to bring your audience to empathize with the sad character. Also, I want to suggest you all that you should maybe try and create something that isn't necessarily a bloodthirsty killer or a human generally. There are literally enough of them. I mean, you can simply make anything into horror if you dig deep enough. There are so many ideas you could use, like ghosts, folklore creatures, unknown monsters, and so on. Just get creative. And another thing that I'd like to point out would be, not all that creepypasta has to murder and be bloodthirsty. There are so many nice concepts that don't have to contain gore or blood. I mean, the most of you should be aware that there are different types of horrors and that splatter horror isn't the only thing existing. Now let's start talking about the creepypasta characters, important subjects, and rules including them. For the first, it being the so-called canons. A canon character is actually a character being part of a famous movie, series, or book. But since creepypasta itself is an internet fanbase about horror stories written by a lot of people online in itself not being some sort of movie or being owned by a person, creepypasta doesn't really own a canon. The very known stories of Russian sleep experiments, Slenderman, Ben Drowned, and so much more are really just referred as classics for their popularity. Gender-bent characters in the community are sometimes taken serious while they really shouldn't be at all. For example, Laughing Jill. A very popular gender band of Laughing Jack with an own story has a pretty big amount of fans and people taking her serious, while in the most recent reference of her she's declared as a joke character. Basically something you shouldn't even take serious. There are also plenty of people in the fandom making gender bands of known characters such as Ben Drowned for example, and then titling it their OC, which you really need to stop doing since that is basically character theft. This is now a very important subject 80% of the fans here don't ask for, basically permission. It is important to ask certain creators of characters for permission to ship, review, do gender bands, include in a project, or even sell merch off, because those characters aren't yours to just use the way you'd like to. You need to ask for permission first, because maybe you'd receive more information about a said character if you want to use them for a comic or so. Second, copyright. And third, with that you'd pay respect to the creator and won't look like an a-hole. A good example for permission asking and receiving is my friend Scope, who asked Scizor for permission to use Jeff the Killer in their own project and make Jeff bisexual in that project to ship him with a male. Scizor agreed, saying that it won't influence the canon Jeff, meaning he has the permission to use Jeff for the project and shipping, but it's not canon in Scizor's view. even though the subject is being looked down upon for being a not so scary topic, let's look at shippings. Yes, they exist, and as mentioned before, even for shipping you need the approval of the character's maker. And if you're being declined or you can't contact the owner of the OC, please respect that and don't ship. Because otherwise you will pretty much be seen as a rude a-hole with no respect for the creator. But if you get the permission, please be kind and don't rub it in everyone's face like it will be canon, while you only have the permission. And make sure to respect the canonship and not just spread hate about it. One famous example, Tiki-Toby and Clockwork, aka Tiki-Work. Many people hate on them being a couple even though it's an official and canon ship made by the creators Castaway and Lucid. Many of those people who hate on the ship seem to just try to separate them two by shipping their OC with Toby, or even trying to make false information on Clockwork being a lesbian just to, you guessed it, ship their OC with Toby. But you all forget the fact that Toby is not yours to use, so with that it's pretty disrespectful to the creators and the canon ship itself. So my suggestion for this and other ships generally is to accept it or just leave it, since you cannot change it. And please, for the love of God, stop spreading hate. If you hate it so much, don't even give your attention to it and keep it to yourself. It's so simple. Maybe if some people would have been respectful about canon ships and wouldn't try to aggressively hate or provoke by doing something they shouldn't, Castaway would maybe still be in this fanbase. Another very important subject in this and any other fandom is to give credit for posted art and characters as well. People on social medias like Instagram most of the time spread creepypasta art around without giving credit to the artists, and that's yet very rude again. Just saying credit to the owner or not mine is very lazy, because it's really simple to look for a picture source online. Most of the creepypasta art comes from DeviantArt or Tumblr anyways, so don't be lazy to give credit. All artists will be very thankful. Crediting the characters themselves is very important as well, for the fact that it can also be seen as a reminder that they aren't real beings. They are just OCs made by someone. As for Slenderman, who was made by Victor Surge. Now, a quick summary of how to make a good creepypasta character yourself. As mentioned at the beginning, this fandom's main purpose is to write horrific stories that will keep you up at night. Can be surreal, paranormal, or whatever you can think of. But also try not to make it too much of unreal, like with too many demons and fighters and stuff, since that quite drifts off horror again and goes into the fantasy fanbase. If you're making a character that will be included in your story, make sure to make him, her, or it fittingly scary for the viewer. Doesn't have to be overly detailed, it can be very simple and frightening. An example for good character design would be thinking about if anyone would want to dress as the killer, monster, or entity on Halloween. I mean, it's easier to be frightened by someone who's dressed as Freddy Krueger than being scared by someone who's dressed as Ted Bundy. Basically, a too simple design can lower the scare factor and even make it very boring. People put up information about mentioned characters, and that's okay. But you really shouldn't go over the top and add information that really nobody cares about. I mean, nobody cares what zodiac sign or blood type your character has. And if there are people who do, you really need to calm down there, dear curious cats. A quick summary of the story and information as name, age, personality, facts, liking and disliking are really enough for the character. And don't be afraid to leave out information about your OC. The fear of the unknown is a good trait in horror. All being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Creepypasta Facts and hope you've learned something from it. If you want to be updated on when the next episode comes out or want to see more of my content, slap that subscribe button and punch that bell. See you next time and remain horrific, my dear Earthlings.